I thought Harry Styles' debut album was alright. I actually really did think there were some really good songs on there. Of course, Sign of the Times was the one song that people really liked, but I actually thought the track Meet Me in the Hallway, the opening track, was the shit. That's probably the best song Harry Styles has ever made, and I think it might be hard for him to top it. Other tracks on there were pretty good too, so I guess Harry Styles really set up his solo career quite nicely, especially in comparison to the other members of One Direction. I mean, when you split from like a boy band or a girl band and go solo, it's always a risk. And I'm not gonna lie, I have no interest in any of the other members of that band. Did anyone even play that 90-minute Zayn album? I think that came out at the end of last year. Does anyone even remember that coming out? Like he legit dropped like a 90-minute album. Like who the fuck sat through that? And then of course Liam Payne dropping one of the worst albums I've heard all year just last week. I didn't review it, and I don't think I'm going to review it, but yeah, let me tell you, man, there was some awful shit on that shit. Niall Horan's just like, and Louis Tomlinson, I think he's had a bit of a rough time in his personal life, so I don't really think he's focusing on music at the moment. But Harry Styles is pretty much, that solo guy now, and with quite a very positive response to this album here. I've been kind of baffled. I'm not gonna lie. I thought this album was gonna really offer something completely new and different for him, and honestly, most of the time, this album just sounds like he's dabbling in and out of sounds and styles that have been done so much better before, and I just don't really feel like he's landing a lot of this album here either. Now, I will start with the positives though. I think Harry is a good performer and a good singer and can sell a really good pop rock track like he did on his debut album and like he's doing on this album with a couple of tracks like Adore You and Golden. Golden being easily the best, which struck me as what I was going to expect for the entire album because I thought that was just such a great opener to the whole thing. I just think the hook on this track in particular is just way better than pretty much the entire album. And Adore You as well isn't quite as good, but again, I think the chorus is really sticky on here. And Lights Up as well, I thought was a catchy pop track with the la di di da da and the piano line on there too. I think these are good tracks, honestly, that I think do prove that Harry has got something in him, especially in comparison to some of his contemporaries right now. I mean, when you think about it, there aren't really any big male pop stars right now. It is kind of weird when you think about it because, of course, there's Post Malone, but he's kind of like in a different lane, sort of thing. Like, he's not like a pop star, you know what I mean? It's very much dominated by women at the moment. And I feel like Harry has an entry point into a lane that he could really, really blow up in and take over. But then he's just dropping so much meh on this album that it just makes me think, nah, he's just gonna kind of keep coasting along, have his die-hard fan base coming from the One Direction camp, sticking with him, but that's going to be kind of it. Because what's really interesting about tracks like Cherry or Falling, the former being just this really, really typical acoustic type ballad that honestly just sounds like straight out of the Forever Ago playbook that was done like in 2008 or even 2007 from Bon Iver. Channeling that even further with the track Fine Line, which closes out the album with his falsetto. That honestly just sounds like a complete dead ringer for Justin Vernon. And then the latter, Falling, is just this really, really straightforward piano type ballad. It's just so nondescript, it's painful. Like, it's not a bad track. Neither are bad songs, but I just have no interest or investment in them at all. And Falling honestly sounds like the track What About Us by Pink, which is really weird to me. I can't help but shake it off whenever I'm listening to that one. To Be So Lonely is just this typical breakup type song where you're at that point where you're taking digs at your ex and being like, hey, you don't know what it's like for me. I go home and I'm so lonely. And honestly, the track itself just sounds like some crappy Lumineers song. I thought we left this shit in like 2012 or whatever. I just didn't want to hear this like really really off-brand folky type stuff. Nah. We've got some of that soulful rock type stuff he was doing on his debut album, which didn't really show up much on here actually, which I kind of appreciate him going off into different genres and stuff. But yeah, this is just like a lesser version of the stuff I think he was doing on the debut. Not that it was amazing or great or anything, but I did just think he kind of sold some of those rock tunes quite well. On here, though, it's just some really, really corny type stuff about, seeing a woman and being like, like, oh, I'm thinking about you all the time, even though I don't even know you. The line as well, where he's like, she lives, she I can't even say it. She lives in daydreams with me. You get some of that peppy pop stuff that he was going for on some of the earlier tracks later on in the album with Candy Moon and Sunflower. These tracks, I guess, are fine. They just remind me a lot of like Vampire Weekend and some of the stuff like Paul Simon was doing in his solo days. I guess nice enough on the ears, I suppose, but it ultimately doesn't really leave me fulfilled or feeling anything in any particular way. I guess at least none of the tracks though are quite as bad as Treat People with Kindness. The chorus on this one is so bad. Like the whole thing about treating people nicely and stuff like that. Look, the sentiment's nice, I guess, but it's as sappy and as empty as like some of the worst stuff you hear from Coldplay. Like seriously, this is as low as we're dropping here, Harry. Come on. I did already mention the closing track in Brief Fine Line. I actually think the final 2 minutes of this one, great 2 minutes. The performances here, like the musicianship, I don't know if who is part of his band or whatever, but they are on some really good shit here. I just think like it sounds larger than life. The horns, the brass section, everything just sounds great. It just throws me back to listening to Sufjan Stevens' Illinois. Like that's as strong as this part is. In fact, once the album had finished, I was like, I'm gonna listen to some songs from Illinois because it actually got me feeling ready for some of that. So yeah, like there's potential here. Obviously, there's some great moments on the album. The 3 tracks that I mentioned are genuinely good. I would just leave the rest. Like some of this is just really not that good at all. It's a shame because I think he's got more in him than he's offering here, or maybe he hasn't, and I'm just being optimistic. I don't know, but like I say, those tracks are that good that I think the album would have been a really really strong one if it kept up with that quality. But nah, I didn't really do that. It's a 5 out of 10 from me. I hope you enjoyed this review. Hopefully you got something out of it. If you're a big Harry Styles fan, I apologize. I don't like it as much as you do, but let me know what you think in the comments. Some of my criticisms, were they fair, were they not? All that kind of stuff. Do hope you have a good day. Thank you for watching my review. Subscribe if you haven't already, and goodbye.